Welcome to the first day of our knee course. We are going to start most of our days seated, and as each of these days goes on, what we're going to do is spend a little more time standing, and we're going to make each of our exercises just a slight bit more difficult as we go. For today, you're going to be entirely in the chair. By the last day, we're going to be spending most of our time standing up. So at the start of each day, we're going to be working on our kneecaps. And the reason I want to point that out is because how your kneecaps move or don't move will actually change how the muscles function in your thighs. And most of the muscles that are going to change how your knees feel are around your thighs, the front and the back. And so how your kneecap moves will actually give your brain some feedback about what's going on in your knee and in these muscles. So we're going to work on making sure our kneecaps move really well. And we're going to start every single day like that. So it's day number 1. What I want you to do is scoot towards the front of your chair so that you have to sit, for the most part, quite upright. You're going to have both legs bent, and you're going to take one leg, and you're just going to straighten it right out in front of you. So the kneecap should float, meaning that it shouldn't be attached to anything. It's just in the middle of a muscle. So most of our bones are really tightly attached by ligaments to the bones that are nearby where they make joints. Whereas our kneecap, it just should float around and not really do a whole lot when your leg is straight. And it should do that because if not, our knee's going to get tight and a little more sore, and it's harder to strengthen. So your kneecap, when your leg is straight, you should be able to kind of pinch on either side of it and create almost this little bracket here like this. So right in between my fingers, that's my kneecap, side to side, and then the same thing top to bottom. So on most people, it's about as big around as a golf ball or slightly bigger. So what we're going to do for today is you're going to have one leg bent to support you. You're going to have the other leg entirely straight. You're going to try to relax this set of muscles in the front of your thigh as much as possible. So for a lot of people, myself included, that's actually easier if I just kind of jiggle it and make sure that the muscles are nice and loose, nice and flimsy. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to take either side of your kneecap. You can do it with thumbs, you can do it with fingers, or you can do it with one thumb and finger on the same hand. And all we're going to do is we're just going to jiggle it side to side about 20 to 30 times. There's no magic number, so 20 to 30 is just something that we're going to do. If it ends up that you do less or you do a little more, that's entirely fine. But what we're going to do is we're just going to take it and we're going to slide it back and forth, side to side, almost like if you had a coin sitting on top of a table and you were just sliding it back and forth between your fingers. We're going to do the same thing with our kneecap, just side to side. So it might click a little bit, it might pop, it might feel a little bit grindy. As long as it's not giving you any kind of sharp pains while you do that, even a little bit of discomfort is fine. So get into that position now. One leg straight, as relaxed as possible. Get a grip on the sides of your kneecap because we're pushing side to side and not down. And do 20 to 30 repetitions of just jiggling it side to side, starting right now. Good. So once you've done 20 to 30 on one side, I want you to switch. So bend that leg. You're going to straighten the other one and try to get it completely relaxed. What you'll probably notice is that certain directions that you move your kneecap are going to have a little more resistance built into them, meaning it's going to be a little tougher to push it that way. It's okay for you to push a little harder into those directions, as long as you're not worried about a previous injury in the area where you've dislocated your kneecap. Everyone's kneecap should be limited by all the things around it, and it's not going to go anywhere. So if you feel a little more resistance in one direction, especially if there's a minor bit of discomfort in that direction, I'd encourage you to explore and push a little bit harder and a little more frequently in that direction. So we're going to start on the other side. Just know that your kneecaps might be different. Your left one might be different than your right one, depending on how you use your body and if you've had different injuries side to side. But what we should have is something kind of similar, where we're just going to scoot it back and forth side to side, like we had a coin on top of a table and we were just sliding it back and forth. So we're going to do the same thing. Get into the position, one leg bent, the other straight. Get those muscles nice and relaxed. Find the kind of sides of your kneecap, and you can put a bracket around them with thumbs or fingers, and we're going to do 20 to 30 reps, moving it side to side, starting now. Good. So this is an exercise when you're moving around your kneecaps that you can actually do throughout the day if you want to. A lot of people will actually give them a little bit of relief, especially if their knees are actively swollen or they're really tight and uncomfortable. Something you can do to hopefully give yourself a little bit of relief to carry on with your day is take a short break, get into the same position, take your kneecap and mobilize it by moving it around side to side. The next exercise you are going to need a yoga block for. So for our next exercise, we are going to be working on our calf muscles. So our calves are the muscles that are on the back of our shin bone down here. And there's a whole bunch of different muscles. But what a lot of people don't realize is even though the main action of our calves is to lift ourselves up onto our toes, to lift our heels off the ground, your calves actually stabilize the back of your knees. So they cross your knee joint in the back. So having good control and good strength in your calves actually does a really good job of making sure that your knee is stable from deep in the backside. So what we're going to do for today is we are actually going to get both of our feet up on a yoga block, and we are going to be just on the ball of our feet so that our heels are hanging off the back and the balls of our feet and our toes are on top of the yoga block. So this is going to be mostly easy for most people, meaning it's not going to be an exercise that gives you a huge amount of strain. But what I want you to do is make sure that you have a lot of control during this exercise, because having control of these muscles is just as important as having strength in them when it comes to long-term health. So that means that you've got to move slowly and under control and try to finesse the movement, try to make it smooth. That's something that we care a lot more about than the number of reps or just how strong you get. So easiest thing to do is to have your knees bent, your shins aiming down, so your heels are just behind the block. And what most people are going to do is lean forward a little bit or put a little bit of pressure on top of their knee so that when we push our heel up, we're giving ourselves a little bit of extra resistance here. So what we're going to do is just one leg at a time. We're going to do 12 repetitions where we let our heel down behind the block as far as it will naturally go with just using gravity. And then we're going to push up onto our toes, hold for a split second, and then right back down again. We're going to do 12 of those per side. So you might have something besides a yoga block. Just make sure that when you put pressure on it, it's not going to move, whatever it is that you're using. So get into that position now, sit up tall, lean forward and put some pressure onto whichever knee you're going to move. And we're going to do 12 repetitions starting right now, where we're going up, pause for a second, slowly back down, and up again, and slowly back down. And we're going to do 10 more of those. Good. So we're at around 12 reps there. If you want to do a couple of more, you're welcome to. And then we're going to switch sides. So if you want to, you can take the side that you just exercised and move it forward so that the middle of your foot and heel are on the block, just to give it a little more rest while we do this. Then we're going to get in the same position on the other side, putting a little bit of pressure on top of the foot that's going to be pressing up. And then we're going to do 10 to 12 repetitions of the same thing, where we're pushing up towards the ceiling, pausing for a second, moving back down slowly. So let's do 10 to 12 reps of that, starting now. Good. And there's 10 to 12. So for our next exercise, we're going to need some kind of slippery surface. So it might be that you have just a tile floor or a linoleum floor or something of that sort, that all you need is to wear your socks and it becomes slippery. It might be that you're on a carpet or you're on a rug of some sort, and that it's not going to be naturally slippery if you're in sock feet or bare feet, in which case what I want you to do is just find something like a magazine cover or something that's just going to slide along those. What we want to do is to create some kind of slippery surface. And the reason being, we're going to stay in our chair, but we're actually going to have our foot pushing into the floor or into the ground, and we're going to be sliding it back and forth. So we just want to make sure that we're not causing a whole bunch of friction and we're not irritating the skin of our feet. So you're going to need some kind of sliding surface. For some people, even just having the yoga block itself will create a sliding surface so that they can push down and they can pull. So whatever that is, you might want to pause the video right now and make sure that you have some kind of slippery surface so that you can move your foot freely while you're pushing down into the ground. So once you've got that surface, what I'm going to use today is essentially my foot on top of a yoga block because I'm on a floor that will allow that yoga block to move. If it turns out that you want to, it's usually easier for most people to just pop off their shoe if they're on something like a tile floor and just be in their sock feet and have socks sliding back and forth, or put their foot on top of something like a beach towel or a cloth of sorts. So what we're going to do is we're going to be starting in the same position towards the front of our chair, and we're going to push whatever the surface is that we're on out away from us. So we're going to start with our heel pushing straight down. So what we're going to do is we're going to push our heel down into the floor or the object, and we're going to pull it slowly back underneath ourselves. So that slow pull, what should be happening is the muscles in the back of your thigh should be doing most of the work. So it's not just about pulling back, it's also about pushing down at the same time with your heel. So this is for our hamstrings. So this is going to be, for the most part, a fairly easy movement for a lot of people, but if you find it too easy, all you have to do is just push harder into the ground. But it should be like you're using your heels to kind of claw yourself forward or claw the ground back to yourself by giving yourself some resistance into the ground. So it's just going to be out in front of you, heel straight down, and you're going to keep pushing down while you pull it back until it gets underneath you. And then we're going to go straight back out again. So we're going to do 5 repetitions per leg on that, starting right now. So push down and slowly pull back until it's underneath besides your other foot, and then gently put it back. And we're going to do 4 more of those. Good. So once you've done 5 on one side, we're just going to take a short break. Make sure you're nice and relaxed. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So get that leg out in front of you, get it mostly straight, push straight down, and pull it back towards you. We're going to do that 5 times on the other leg, starting now. I'm just going to do 1 more. Good. And that's it for the yoga block for today. So the next exercise that we've got for today is for our quads, which is short for quadriceps. It's the biggest muscle in our body, and it is on the front of our thighs here. So this is actually the set of muscles that your kneecap floats around in. So you have the muscles that go all the way from your front of your hip down the front of your thigh to the front of your shin, and when your leg is relaxed, your kneecap floats inside these muscles. So these muscles play a big role in how our knees feel and just how strong they are. So we're going to start today with a really simple exercise to get these guys moving and get them starting to feel a little more strength, and then these are going to be something that we focus on a little more as we go through each of the 5 days. So for today, what you probably want to do is scoot a little more towards the back of your chair so you can lean back a little bit. And what we're going to do today, all we're going to do is 1 leg at a time, is we're just going to straighten all the way straight out in front of us, hold tight in here for a second, and then slowly relax and bring it back. So I'm going to do all 5 on 1 leg, take a short break, then do all 5 on another leg, and then we're done. But if you want to, you can alternate. You can go left and then right and then left and then right. But it makes the balance a little harder. If you have a chair that has arms on it and you're okay with a little side to side, you're welcome to alternate, as that'll be easier on the muscles themselves. But if you're like me and you're in a chair that just has a simple back and no armrests and you have some strength in these muscles already, I'd encourage you to do all 5 on one leg before jumping onto the other. So just get into a position where you're leaning back a little bit, you still have a nice upright posture, both legs straight out in front of you with knees bent. We're going to start on the left leg. We're just going to slowly straighten it, really try to feel these muscles, and then slowly relax it back again. 5 repetitions starting now. And at the very end, really squeeze these guys, and then slowly relax. And do the same thing again. Squeeze, and then relax. And we're going to do 3 more. Good. So take a breath, relax, try to let everything relax in your thighs a little bit. Then we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. 5 repetitions starting now. Good. Let's just do 1 more repetition for today. Really squeeze those muscles and then relax. So some people might have actually gotten some cramps while doing that into their quads. That's entirely fine. As we go through each of the days, it should get a little bit easier and you're much less likely to get some cramps doing it. Those cramps don't mean you're dehydrated. They don't mean there's anything wrong. It usually just means that you're using a muscle in a way that's a really high demand. It's not used to being used that way. So sometimes your nervous system just grabs on. That's entirely fine. That'll go away the more that we do. Our last exercise for today is what we call a tibial internal rotation. It's a big sounding phrase, but your tibia is just your shin bone down here, and internal rotation just means that we're taking it and we're twisting it in a little bit. So as we age, we tend to lose a lot of internal rotation. We lose it in our shoulders, we lose it in our hips, and we lose it in our knees. So what we want is to make it so that our shin bone can actually rotate inward a little bit relative to our femur or our thigh bone, because that's going to help our knees operate a little bit better and help the joint inside make sure it has some wiggle room for our day-to-day life. So all you're going to do is you're going to be towards the front of your chair. You're going to have both of your shin bones straight up and down. Your heels are going to stay on the ground. You're going to lift 1 toe at a time. You're going to take your toes and aim them in, hold for a split second, bring them back out, and then relax. The muscles that do this tend to fatigue really quickly for a lot of people. So what we're going to do is we're going to alternate. We're going to go left and right, back and forth for 10 total reps, which will give us 5 per leg. As we go through the days, we're going to challenge these muscles a little bit more, but the muscles fatigue. It'll be your shin usually that feels the fatigue, or maybe the top of your ankle. We're going to start a little slower today. So sit towards the front of your chair. Let's start with our right leg. We're going to take toes up off the ground, point them in, try to keep your knee from doing all of the movement, and then hold for a second, point them back to neutral, and let it back down. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side, and go back and forth for a total of 10 reps, starting now. Just got 1 more per side. And that's it. So that's it for day number 1. We've done a little bit of exercise for a whole bunch of different muscles around our knees. We've tried to make sure the joints in our knees are moving the way that we want. We're just going to make this a little bit harder and a little more challenging as we go every single day. I look forward to seeing you on day number 2.